Doug, if you're talking to me, I can't hear you.
Can you hear me, Kim? All right, audience. We're going to introduce our special guest again, Elisa Victory. We had some audio issues. Elisa, can you introduce yourself again? We had some audio difficulty. How much time are we working with? Because I want to make sure it's there. You go. Can you? Can you? Oh man, we can't hear you. Mm.
But I think you said to introduce myself again.
Yes, well, you ought to be used to it if you become our mayor. So let's get it down. So introduce yourself one more time.
I'm Elisa Victory, and I'm a candidate for Oakland Mayor 2022. Election is November 8th next year. I am raised in this community. I still live in this community, and I'm a product of this community. I've been a lifelong public servant. Started serving as a child with my church in West Oakland and my family, doing food and clothing distribution to those in need. And I'm running to be the ultimate public servant as the first Black woman ever elected to mayor in the city.
Elisa Victory, can you give us just because I know you're not working with a lot of time here, but can you give our audience a brief breakdown of why you think you'll be the best person to serve this city? And we had technical difficulties on the on that part. I was talking with other people who do lip reading. I don't think they heard what I said. So let me say what I said so that you get an understanding that I'm voting and I'm behind the candidate that's going to start serving the constituents of this city. Can you tell our audience what and why, what you have done to prepare you to serve, and why you think you should serve and be our next mayor for the city of Oakland? Thank you.
Thank you. Again, I'm already a public servant. I'm a civil rights attorney. I'm a labor attorney. I organize with labor. I'm a union member and a member of my bargaining committee working for our first contract at my employer. I also do direct community service. I've been doing that ever since I was a child, and now I lead those programs, have directed community service in Deep East Oakland and in partnership with so many other community serving organizations and homeless serving organizations, especially during pandemic. And I do that on a regular basis. I advise our city of Oakland on issues from public safety to public banking to workers' rights, and have ever since I was a law student. But I now do that every day for cities and counties throughout the state of California, not just Oakland. So I've experienced at the county level and at the city level. I've even worked inside of our city attorney's office and understand some of our internal structural issues and issues with our legal liabilities. But I am running to really reorient our city to a circular economy so that our people are at the center in all of our decision making and our policy making and our budgetary decisions. And I'm particularly concerned about the state of Black Oakland, knowing that we're not going to have many Black people in Oakland if we continue with the status quo. It's estimated that 80% of the folks homeless and living in tent encampments and RVs are Black, who look just like me. I was homeless in this city over a decade ago and thought that was our crisis. We've had failed leadership ever since then that has produced this crisis we are seeing now. The crisis really centers at the leadership, who is supposed to be leading, but instead there's management of the crisis, there's displacement, and there's exacerbation. We have to have responses to our ongoing issues that is rooted in the people, that centers people, that centers human care, love, and compassion. So there is a design that is producing massive inequality and injustice, especially for Black folks, for immigrant communities, and working class people. But there's also a design for justice. And that is what I'm running on, and that's what I'm trying to bring to the city. That we are one of the wealthiest cities. We have one of the largest ports in the entire country. We have access to technology and tech hubs and new programs that haven't even hit the rest of the country or the world yet. We have a wealth of culture and diversity, but we are not all thriving and able to feel safe in this community, to have a business, or to have employment in this community. And that is part of our choices. Poverty is a policy choice, inequity is a policy choice. And those choices have been made consistently in this city. But I am a mayor that is not going to choose those. I'm going to choose the people. I'm going to choose justice. I'm going to choose equity. I'm going to choose to increase and expand our public sector. I'm going to invest in our Department of Race and Equity so we can address our 2018 equity indicators report. I want to invest in our Office of Contracts Compliance and have different terms and a different pipeline for how we're even recruiting and qualifying businesses to work with the city or to receive funds from us so that we can address equity in the design piece, not adjust the results that we're seeing. We know that Black folks in the disparity study lost out on over $40 million in city contracts. Again, that's not by accident, it's by design. The design then has to center those same people in communities who have been disenfranchised for decades, if not generations. We have to start with our most vulnerable communities, with those that have been most left out. During the pandemic, we've seen governments at every level can provide payroll protection, eviction moratorium so that businesses won't get kicked out if they can't pay commercial rents. We can do things that center people and making sure we can thrive and survive. We need to keep doing more of them. Whenever pandemic ends or is over, they need to continue. These are fundamental life-saving safety nets for people's businesses, for people's livelihoods. We have to invest in Oakland and every part of it. I'm not running just to represent the Hills or even just the voters. I'm running to represent every person that lives and works in this city. I will stop there and see if you have any other questions before I have to jump off. And I'll also just plug my website is victoryforoakland.com, where you can read my full bio and see my early endorsers.
Elisa, I know you have to go, so I have one, maybe two quick questions. First, I was talking with some colleagues of mine, and they were saying in the last 8 years, the good faith effort to make a genuine good faith effort to have Black businesses participate in the governmental contracts of this city has disappeared or was wiped off the face of the map by somebody in our political system here in Oakland. And the second is, give me briefly your opinion on Mayor London Breed when she just signed in legislation to make it more feasible, more fair, and give more opportunities for minority business. And then we're going to bring in our special guest, and I think you know him, Gene Hazzard. You know he's going to light it up, sister. So go ahead. Let our audience know.
Brief so we can get to Gene's remarks. I support and champion what Mayor Breed is doing in San Francisco and hope that it will be a real game changer for the Black folks that are there and that are trying to return. As we know, so much of the Black community in San Francisco has been displaced over decades. Many of them moving to Oakland and moving into the East Bay and losing a lot of some of our cultural hubs and traditionally Black neighborhoods there. So I love to see that the mayor herself is setting that strong intentional policy and investment. And those are the type of things that I will do as mayor. And we have a strong mayor system in Oakland that is unlike San Francisco or unlike other cities, where our mayor controls our administration. Our mayor has to oversee the implementation of our budget. Our mayor has to faithfully execute directives that are already passed by our council. So if our council is going to be trying to address this and passing legislation, I want to be working with them in partnership to ensure that we have a real effective administration of it. And certainly we'll be proposing greater investments in our people in the budget. And that is one of the strong mayor powers, is being able to propose the budget, though the council can make amendments and ultimately votes on what budget to ultimately approve. But still, the mayor helps set a lot of the discussion and the parameters around what funding will happen, what the priorities are. And the mayor certainly is a representative of the city. They represent the people, but they also represent us to neighboring cities, to our county, and they are advocates. Right? I want to fight and negotiate on behalf of our people with outside companies and corporations, with other cities, with our county, to ensure we have adequate resources and partnerships. And I am the mayor that is willing to go to businesses, not just send you an email or invite you to Zoom. And we have to really shift that practice of civic engagement to expecting people to come to the city when the city needs to go to the people. So I love what Mayor Breed is doing, and I want to make Oakland a model of really innovative and taking the first step and leap to show what equity looks like in action.
Alisa Victory, we here on the Black Business Roundtable, we appreciate your appearance today, and we look forward to having you back on to articulate what you're doing out there. Thank you for coming on. Now we are going to talk. We're going to go back a little bit. And once again, we had Alisa come on because I thought it was very important that she, with her limited time constraints, that she come on and let our audience know what she stands for and how she's going to improve and serve. And audience, let me be clear. Our politicians need to understand they serve the people and not themselves. There is a problem not here in Oakland, not here in the county, not here in the state, but in the United States, that our politicians have forgotten why they were elected and who elected them. They were elected to serve, and the people elected them to serve. And voting has a big part of that. So we are going to go back a little bit, and for the national political highlight, Val Deming is running for the 2022 Florida Senate seat. If you would like to say updated on Team Demings, text the word join to 77076. That's 77076. She is a Florida strong, a woman of color, and former Orlando police chief seeking to unseat Republican Little Marco Rubio in Florida as he continues to divide Floridians by continuing the big 2020 election steal lie. And yes, folks, Trump, you lost. Suck it up and move on. You lost, Trump. Little Marco, pack your little bags, put your little tennis shoes on, and scurry on up out of there and let Val Demings clean up the mess that you've caused, not only down in Florida, but across the United States. Floridians, by continuing the big 2020 election steal, you are allowing a divisiveness in this country. And we have got to come together because we are the United States, not the divided states. Thank you. Be sure to register to vote. Let's flip this seat and let Val Demings, former police chief, drain the Florida swamp of Little Marco Rubio. Val Demings for 2022 Senate. Her tagline is never tire. And I put the extra never in there, but it's never tire. Election date, November 8th, 2022. That is election date 2022. So you have a year, or actually 11 months, to register and prepare yourself to give Val Deming the support she needs to clean up Florida and move Florida into a more progressive state. News of the day. Dr. Ashley would normally take it away, so I'm going to hit on it briefly. One day in history, December 2nd, 1992. Publication of model sterilization law leads to targeted compulsory sterilization. Courtesy of EJI, Equal Justice Initiative. Visit calendar.eji.org for more information and to read the full story of this day in our Black and Brown history. Go to facebook.com, permalink at PPH. Next, for our weekly check-in with Dr. Ashley Coleman. But once again, she had a emergency where she couldn't be here today. So I'm going to give a brief Dr. Ashley Coleman, and because I've been around her for 6 months, I think I have not developed nowhere a fraction of what she can do. But I suffer at times from anxiety and stress. And it takes a big person to admit that. And I'm going to say that again, audience. Just like you would go to the doctor for a broken leg, just like you would go to your dentist for an infected tooth, when your mind is broken, please seek the help that is needed. Let's move into our next guest. Do we have him backstage? Oh, here he is, Mr. Gene. Mr. Gene Hazzard, take yourself off of mute, sir. Oh my goodness. You know, Gene, I apologize for bringing you in a little bit later than anticipated, but can you hear me?
Can you hear me? I could hear you.
You and I have an hour and 10 minutes to light it up. We're going to take a break every, say, 10 or 15 minutes, 1 or 2 minute break, so I can give our sponsor and our producer and the Black USA person, .news, who makes this all possible. But Gene Hazzard, I want to introduce you so that our audience can have a full understanding of how important you are to the city of Oakland, to the county of Alameda, and to the state of California. We are going to light it up today, and I'm going to read your bio. Normally, Dr. Ashley does that. Gene Hazzard, BA in History and Business. He pursued and received his master's degree in community development and public service. Spent decades helping people of limited means and resources. Can you give our audience a brief history of your background before we light it up with the receipts you have brought to share with us today? And audience, I would also like to say Orly Brown was unable to make it today because of prior engagement and conflicts in her schedule. But Gene and Orly Brown have a 30-year friendship. So he will be able to speak on some aspects of the Orly Brown promise, the original promise. Mr. Gene Hazzard, let us light it up, sir. It's all
Thank
yours.
you, Mr. Blacksher, for having me.
I'm going to put my mic on mute because audience, I just want to say this. Gene and I have had we've had hours of conversation, and this brother is so well versed. I'm just going to put mine on mute, and I'll just shoot questions in here and there, but go ahead and light it up.
Okay. Thank you. First of all, I'm from Florida, so vote for Miss Miss Demings. All right. Secondly, EJI is the Equal Justice Initiative founded by Brian Stevenson, and they deal with people largely being wrongfully incarcerated. I've been working on a case for 12 years of a young man who got 75 years to life. He was innocent of that crime right here in the city of Oakland. Right? And so I'm familiar with Mr. Stevens, and Carlos's mother, Wendy, is also a more than just a pen pal with him. And we've read cases all over the country that mirrors what Carlos has been innocent of. Not guilty, innocent. There's a difference between being innocent and not guilty. Not guilty merely says there's not enough evidence to show whether or not you committed the crime or not. But Carlos is innocent. With regards to just briefly, my background actually indicated I graduated from Cal State Hayward, and then and before I did my master's in community development and public service, I went off to the Peace Corps for 2 years in India. Then I actually went back to Cal State to a master's in public administration, but after 1 quarter, that wasn't for me. And then along comes this opportunity at Lone Mountain College in San Francisco, which is under the auspices of USF in community development and public service. So that's where I received my master's in community development and public service. So my life experience has been one of touching and feeling the public and dealing with those issues that could uplift the spirit, and whether it's justice, economics, of those who are challenged by the absence of those things. I've been in business. I've had a restaurant with my partners for 8 years. I've had an antique store. I've tutored students from West Oakland schools, Ralph Bunche, Prescott, and Cole schools, young Black males attending those schools who were incorrigible in the classroom, but 20 of them came religiously to what we called our Ronnie Gordon program. Ronnie Gordon was a very interesting individual, lived with his grandmother and brother, and he drowned in Alameda Beach. And so we then named the program the Ronnie Gordon Tutorial Program. Outside of that, most folks know I got a fetish for politics. Whether I'm running, involved in other people's campaign, I could do it all. I like to consider myself a behind the scene strategist. But having said that, that's briefly some of my background. I don't need to go into anything else, so people have a overall idea.
Gene, let me say this, Gene. I think our audience needs to hear about your background. You are a humble servant of the people of Oakland, and they don't even know it. So please light it up. Let us know what we don't know, and I'm going back to mute.
Well, let me just, I want to just correct what your previous candidate said. We have on the record a so-called strong mayor form of government, but it's a weak mayor form of government. In 1998, when Jerry Brown brought that to the attention of the voters, that violated the single subject rule. The single subject rules in the state of California. That means one ballot, one issue. The Jerry Brown strong mayor form of government had 3 issues contained in that. One was the strong mayor form of government, which had no legislative authority. Jerry Brown did not want to come to city council meetings. That's why he put that to the voters. The second issue on that ballot measure was the election of the city attorney. in order for Jerry to get the support of John Russo, he had to have the election of the city attorney. Because up until that time, Jane Williams, a Black woman, was the city attorney, and the policy and the process was that the city council would then appoint whoever the city attorney was. And John Russo, no, he could never get it. So that was the second issue that was on that ballot measure. The third issue was actually made that ballot measure pass was that the voters would be able to vote for city council's pay raise. Up until that time, the Public Ethics Commission that was created by then council member Dick Spees, was just a shell game, because the Public Ethics Commission, it had nothing to do with Public Ethics Commission. It was a conduit through which the council got a pay raise. They would recommend up to 5%, 3 to 5% pay raise, and then the council would vote it on consent calendar. That was the strong mayor form of government. The mayor has no legislative authority. The mayor is basically a cheerleader and has to present the budget, recommended budget, to the council, and the council has its corresponding budget, and they kick that back and forth. Well, I sued Jerry Brown, tried to get folks to lawyers to join me in that, couldn't find it. That case went all the way. I got through the appeals court, but the Supreme Court denied review, so it fell on deaf ears.
Can I ask you, and just briefly, can you tell our audience about Jerry Brown, who was the governor of the state of California, then came back to be the mayor for the city of Oakland, brought back with him gentrification, which has impacted from then to now the devastation of lack of opportunities for Black businesses and the gentrification process that's been going on since he started while he was in office and 10 to 20 years now after he's left. Thank you, sir.
Yes, Jerry Brown was really clear what his mission was. Matter of fact, he told a group of Black ministers that it was, God heard his prayers and not theirs. And he also said in the New York Times article in 1998, he was going to change the cultural demographic outlook in this town. Okay.
What does that mean to you when he said that? Because I already know what it means. But
gentrification.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, and he gave Forest City. Rob Bob was the city administrator then under Jerry Brown. Rob Bob wanted to bring the A's downtown on 19th Street. Jerry Brown fired him. Jerry Brown gave over $70 million to Forest City out of Chicago to build Forest City downtown. And Jerry Brown had no shame by saying what he wanted to do with changing the demographics of this town. He eliminated redevelopment agency, which would have helped with low and moderate income housing. That was Jerry Brown. The other suit I filed on Jerry Brown was he put forth to the voters, as they voted overwhelmingly for the strong mayor, they did the same thing to allow him to appoint 3 board members to the school board. Well, that too was illegal. I couldn't find anybody to join me in, so I did it myself. Do I have a legal background? My legal background limits itself to Perry Mason and Matlock. But I do understand the legal landscape. And I tell folks, you don't have to be intimidated by the law. If you feel very passionate about the illegality of an issue, all you have to do, go get lawsuits that already been filed and follow that format. Then
You,
find your paralegal to help you put it on pleading papers. But the formats are always there.
Gene, let's since we have laid out the foundation to how you are getting ready to light it up, let me ask you this. What was the catalyst that started you on the quest that ended in the Oakland Promise lawsuit? Thank you, sir.
Well, in 2018, there was a ballot measure, the Children's Initiative of 2018, AKA Measure AA. That ballot measure, as was in the ballot in the impartial analysis by the city attorney, Barbara Parker, required that that ballot measure, in order to pass, it needed 2/3 voter approval for passage. So the voters were fully aware of that. There was no question. But the council, in its finite wisdom, decided to say that ballot measure passed on December 14th, 2018. The council voted. There was one council member who did not vote for it. The council members voted to say that that ballot measure passed, but it failed. And so after the council and the certified election results from the Alameda County voter registrators supported the fact and sent to the city clerk that the ballot measure in fact failed. The council took this egregious action. I, along with Mr. Salo Labala and maybe one other person, we objected to that. And I told the council then, should anybody file a lawsuit, you will lose, because what you're doing is voter suppression and you are advocating, ignoring the will of the voter. On February 1, 2019, lo and behold, the Jobs and Housing Coalition filed a lawsuit. I was told by a number of folks it's going to take 3 or 4 years. I said, not if they filed a summary judgment. They did that. And so in October, Judge Ronnie McLaren, issued an order supporting the lawsuit and said that the council's action back on December 14th, 2018 was unenforceable, and that what they did was fraud on the voter.
You know what? You are laying some heavy, heavy stuff on this audience. So, in layman's term, what is the Oakland Promise lawsuit and its significance to Oakland residents? Thank you, sir.
So, Oakland Promise is merely a organization without any legal status. I'll say it again. Oakland Promise has no legal status. And how I'm able to say that is because, number one, then after I did a public records request to the then Attorney General of the state of California, Xavier Becerra, said Oakland Promise, there's no evidence that Oakland Promise ever filed an application for a 501c tax-exempt nonprofit public benefit corporation. This was the state attorney general. Similarly, in a legal opinion by our own city attorney, Barbara Parker, in a legal opinion on March 3rd, 2020. She stated prior to 2019, Oakland Promise was not a nonprofit. Now, Oakland Promise has only been around since 2015, 2016. Okay?
Let me ask you something. I've heard promise before, so let's let our audience, specifically those here in Oakland and Alameda County. I remember in 1987. Well, let me back up a little bit from there. Mayor Libby and anybody who we've talked about on this show today, if you would like to come on this show and refute or discuss or address anything that's being said, get in touch with us and we would be more than happy to hear your side. So I wanted to put that out there such that when this gets back to the mayor and whoever else is involved in this, you have an opportunity to come on this show and give your side of this. Second,
Thank you for, let me just say, thank you for saying that, Mr. Blacksher, because everything I tell you, I can support with evidence. Everything. And interesting enough, nobody from the other side has chosen to challenge my evidence. Now, with regards to the promise, there's a wonderful person, a real estate person I've known for 25 or 30 years. Orly Brown Educational Foundation. In 1987, she's taken 13 elementary school students and out of her own resources funded those folks to college. She has to date, let me just say, she has to date over 136 persons, maybe more than that. Now,
200.
it's
200.
200?
According to her, 200.
200. Now, those of us who've been around that know about Miss Brown and these corporations, Salesforce knows about Miss Brown. Do you think they would contribute to this educational foundation? There's a young lady now, she'll be going to law school in 2022. Miss Brown has followed her. Miss Brown asks that the parents encourage their children to look into the future for their educational achievement. 200 folks. Do you think East Bay College Fund has contributed to Miss Brown? Do you think Oakland Public Education Fund? Everybody is clamoring around what I will call hijack the promise from Miss Brown to this organization. Miss Brown, go ahead.
Let me ask you something, sir. I mean, we are way off script, but I got to ask you something.
I'm on the phone.
If you know, how many kids has the Oakland Promise under Libby Schaaf? How many kids have been, I believe the number I had was $70 million that they've collected over the last, 7 to 10 years? How many kids has the Oakland Promise, not the Promise by Orly Brown Foundation, because we just identified the number, and I got it directly from Orly Brown's mouth. It's over 200 kids. How many kids has the Oakland Promise promised to get an education out of that $70 million, $4.5 million out of the city of Oakland's budget? Thank you, sir.
Let me just make something real clear. The mayor's Oakland Promise is not supposed to collect one dime because they do not have a determination letter from the IRS that supports who they claim they are, a 501c tax exempt nonprofit public benefit corporation. Ask them to produce the determination letter. Ask them to produce the certificate of merger that they claim they merged with the East Bay College Fund. That's all my lawsuit is about. Produce those documents. Orly Brown can't. Orly Brown's EIN number is 94311 5273, and she could produce that determination letter. Don't have Mia Bonta, who was the CEO and the first manager of Oakland Promise, was David Silver. He used to work for Oakland Public Education Fund. His salary was $137,000 over there. But when the Randon Foundation created the funds in order for a manager to go into the mayor's office, which was David Silver, he was the first, quote, CEO for Oakland Promise.
What? Let me ask you. But I got some questions because you're answering them before I can get them out. So let me.
I apologize.
No, oh no. Gene Hazzard, Mr. Hazzard. Let me tell you, sir, the information that you are providing in this audience is invaluable. And after this show, we would like to follow up in future shows to identify where $70 million, $4.5 million from the city of Oakland, what kids have benefited from that with this support. Let me get this last question. Let me get this next question out. We're gonna go back there.
Okay.
What have been the responses from Mayor Libby Schaaf as you filed an opposition to Schaaf's demur in October of this year, and explain what a demur is? Thank you, sir.
So my initial lawsuit was filed on July 29th of this year. Then they did a demur. Basically, a demur is where they don't answer anything. They will kind of more technical. They said, I don't have any standing. Therefore, if I don't have any standing, I don't have a cause of action. They were hoping that the court would have dismissed my case, but the courts did not do it. The court gave me leave to amend. So let me give you an example of what that leave to amend is. Let's look at that like a movie script. So Doug has this movie script, and the director and producer said, well, I like your plot, but go back and do some editing. So the leave to amend is the editing I've done, okay? So now, what I did in my verified complaint of July 29th, some of the defendants included the current Attorney General, Rob Bonta, because Rob Bonta, not only did he speak at that December 14th, supported the action of the council, Rob Bonta was also a co-author.
Now, who is Rob Bonta again?
He's currently the Attorney General and the husband of Mia Bonta.
The Attorney General for the state of California?
That's right.
Thank you.
Okay, and he was a formerly assembly person. But let me say the strategy I used. I identified Mr. Bonta in his current capacity as the Attorney General for his egregious action in terms of supporting the activity of the council in 2018, knowing full well he wasn't the Attorney General then, But I didn't want to put then the assembly member, because they could have just not responded at all. But when I put the attorney general, it was anticipated I would get a reaction from them, and that was, well, he was an attorney general at the time with Mr. Hazzard alleged this the conduct, and they're absolutely right. So what the court did, because that was something that could be cured, and I said, fine.
What does cured for so far?
Okay, there's a statute, and I Googled the California Civil Code and Procedure 473. It states, in essence, when there's an inadvertent mistake, excusable, you have an opportunity to correct it. So, on my amended complaint, you will see the former assembly member, Rob Bonta. And so that's an addition. I'll get into it in a sec, the other things that are in this amended complaint. But understand this. What Rob Bonta did as the assembly member, he disenfranchised, supporting the council's action, he disenfranchised every voter who voted against that ballot measure. I'll say it again. He disenfranchised the voter.
And can you tell our audience why you say that, and how did he do that, and what does that mean? Thank you, sir.
And in the demur, they had stated he didn't have a vote on the council's action. First of all, that's an admission of his support of the council's action, okay? Secondly, the court, when the Honorable Ronnie McLaren issued an order granting to the Jobs and Housing Coalition what the council's action on December 14th was unenforceable. Unenforceable, but yet, guess what? If you go to the Secretary of State's website, it's at the Secretary of State's website as we speak right now. If we go to because that was a charter amendment, it's codified in the charter, 1600 and 1607. 1607 is specific to the Oakland Promise Fund. Well, here's the problem with that. Oakland Promise is a non-governmental interest. You cannot codify in the business of the city under the charter, and the charter in Oakland was effectuated in January 1969.
Can you let our audience know, what does codify mean? Thank you.
Well, make it simple terms, make it part of. It's an attachment to. So when you go to the city charter, it cannot be attached in the city charter. No, that ballot measure was illegal from its outset because it was a city charter. And you had Oakland Promise in that Children's Initiative of 2018. And actually, the lawyers for the Jobs and Housing Coalition should have been challenging that as well. But I have it in my lawsuit.
Okay. Gene, just as I've seen you for the last 10 years in the Oakland City Council, challenging truth to power, we're going to take a quick 1 to 2 minute break, and we're going to be give an announcement to our Donnie Glover, BlackUSA.news, and our sponsor. Thank you, Donnie Glover of Black USA News, and be sure to tune in to Sister Biz with my sisters, Nicole and Tamara, on Wednesday, and also Black USA Crypto News with Kamal Hubbard on Friday. He was a guest 2 weeks ago. Also, learn more about Tammy Willis, owner of Magnolia Engineering and Construction. Visit Magnolia Engineering and Construction. We want to be a part of growing with our community in Oakland, California. Connect with Magnolia Engineering and Construction now on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and Twitter and LinkedIn. To join our advertising family, send your company name, address, website, company phone number, and social media info to our email address, BBRT, lowercase, 2021 at hotmail.com. Once again, that's lowercase BBRT 2021 at hotmail.com. Now, we want to get right back here to our special guest, the man who I've seen and continuously see, who fights for his community and for those who are less fortunate and do not have the resources. He does it out of his own pocket. You need to be running for something, mayor, council member, assembly person, but you've done an outstanding job, and I've followed you for the last 10 plus years. And when I'm at city council, Gene, the information that you provide them, I've never seen any time any one of our city council members refute what you have to say. So from a brother to another brother, keep up the good work, man.
Thank
Keep
you.
up the great work.
Let me just say to all those, do your research. You got to do your research. That's why they don't take me on, because my research is uncontroverted and it's not disputed. I could support it. Everything I say, you could take it to the bank.
You know, I want to once again put out here again, because this show is not about beating up anybody. It's about identifying the problem and developing solutions to
That's
solve
right.
those problems.
That's right.
And let me be clear, and I've said this, and I'm going to continuously say this, so that Black people who are in this smoke and mirror mindset, Black people are on the bottom of every list in this world, whether it be economics, education, health, mental health, housing, you name it. Black people are at the bottom. And it is my job. It's my job to show a spotlight on where the problem is and find gentlemen like Mr. Gene Hazzard and other people who've been on this show, Dr. Newell, Dr. Banks, Dr. Wheeler, Honorable Elihu Harris, and I can go on and on and on. But we can't continue to say, oh, we know the problem. We have to find solutions. And that gets us right back to our man of the hour. Mr. Gene Hazzard, I have some questions. Now, you continue on elaborating, because you're answering questions that are on my second and third page. So I'm going to go back a little bit and just identify when I say here. And you've already, I think, answered parts of these questions, but we're going to break it out. Who is Mia Bonta, and what is the connection to Mayor Libby? I noted you listed on your website the question of her status, active bar license in the state of California. What was the significance of this information in your blog on 8/25/2021? Hey, I'm learning from you, sir. I did my homework.
I just want to give people the information. They can make a determination themselves. And my website is cleanoakland.com. And then go to my blog, and you will get you will see a lot of things. Even Phil Nagami and the Rotunda building that he got for $99 back when under Jerry Brown. And he wanted $7 million. They gave him $12 million. And it said at that time, that in the future, if he sold the building for $38 million after everything was paid off, then he would split the proceeds 50-50. But here's the thing then. There was a developer who, and I read all the proposals. And matter of fact, Phil Degami didn't even submit a proposal. There was a gentleman out of San Jose, had all the bank support statement. He wanted to do a hotel right where the Rotunda building is. Okay.
Can you let our audience know what is the value that our previous mayor, ex-governor, sold to the Phil Degami for 99 cents? What was that?
$99.
$99. Excuse me.
Right. Okay. It's a giveaway. It's a giveaway of public funds. And mind you, the Rotunda building is separate from the Rotunda garage. Phil Degami, that's not for sale. And I'm told they're looking at about 47 million on the Rotunda. Okay. And this whole thing around the Army base, Phil Degami got that as well. But we have to wake up and not go for the head fake and not go for those things when they say community benefits. Phil Degami promised monies that would go to the Job Center, Resource Center from the Army base and the billboard signs. He reneged mostly on that. I'm only looking at just a few things that I'm aware of. Just think how many things that go unattended. That Oak to 9th Street project, the Brooklyn Basin, that was supposed to be an open space development, 64 acres of open space development. Don Parada, then Senate Pro Tem, created legislation, SB 1622. That piece of legislation had nothing to do with housing development because you cannot do residential housing, long-term housing on Thailand Trust property. That property was entrusted to the port. So what Don Parada did, it was a land swap. Then they came and did the housing. And Jerry Brown and Gene Kwan, I think they went to China to get this Asian developer. That's why the name was changed to Brooklyn Basin. Gametti, Signature Property, had got the nod on that from Phil Degami and John Protopopoulos when they were on the Port Committee. This is back in 2003.
And thank you for that valuable information. Audience, this definitely, and Mr. Gene Hazzard, we appreciate your research and sharing how some of our politicians are giving our cities away while the masses,
at the expense of Black folks.
I couldn't have said about. Thank you for breaking it down in layman terms. But as we move forward, I also see you file an opposition to attorney Rob Bonta Dimmer as well in September. What was the result of that action, sir?
So, Attorney General Rob Bonta is part of the whole lawsuit on Oakland Promise because of his participation. And see, my lawsuit goes to just one single issue: the legal status of Oakland Promise.
And but let so our audience understand. You're not asking for any money. You're not suing anybody. You filed this lawsuit, and from my understanding with our conversation, out of money out of your own pocket to find out where is $70 million? And since we identified, hold on, let me get it. I gotta get this question out. We identified that there were 200 kids with the small budget that the Orly Brown Foundation had, and I'm sure it's nowhere. I don't think it's 100th. Well, let's just say a fraction of 70 million. How many kids, if you know, has the Oakland Promise put through college, or sent to college, or bought shoes, or even bought books to go to college, if you know?
That's not my issue. My issue is that they are not a legal entity to collect a dime. All that other stuff would come out in the wash. I'm staying focused on the issue. Produce the document that supports who you say you are. That's all I'm asking. Produce the determination letter. Don't send me to the Secretary of State's website. Look, when in March of 2020, the council person in District 6 presented a resolution to the council to give $1,500,000 to Oakland Promise. Now, that resolution is 88208. Now, when you read that resolution, it's all about East Bay College Fund in the narrative of the resolution. It said that East Bay College Fund amended and restated its articles of incorporation, and they called themselves Oakland Promise. Well, you can't even adopt somebody else's name that's already in existence. Number one is what they call rebranding. They can't even do that. That is highly questionable. But being that as it may, it's to confuse the public on who Oakland Promise is. Now, when you read the grant, guess who signs off on the grant?
Who?
Not Andy Fremder, not East Bay College Fund, Mia Bonta. Okay? Mia Bonta. That $1,500,000. And then some change because there were another grant associated with that. Go get it. Go look at resolution 88208. Okay. And then get the supporting document and see who signed. It's not the name that is contained in the resolution.
You know what? You got me squeezing my stress stick because I can't believe this Orly Brown, who started her foundation in 1987, called the Oakland Promise.
And let me just say, she would take, and she was executive director and didn't take a dime.
No, she gave $10,000.
She gave $10,000 out of her own money that she earned from real estate. Okay?
Except in 2008, when the real estate market plummeted.
That's right.
She could only give $5,000.
Yeah, that's right.
I've learned well from you, Mr. Hazzard. I've done my homework too.
All right, I see. I like that. I like that.
In 2008, Orly Brown, the original Promise.
The original Promise.
The original Promise has paid $10,000 a year to her foundation out of her pocket to make sure that low-income Black and brown and other kids have an opportunity to go to college if they earn their way in. She is an amazing lady, and I am honored to know that I am in a city with a woman who has dedicated her life to making it possible for kids who would be disadvantaged, not have the opportunity to move forward. But moving right along.
Let me just say this.
Yes, sir.
When Blue Shield moved his corporate office at 11th and Jefferson, the employees gave the mayor's organization known as Oakland Promise $1 million. I wrote Blue Shield and told them Oakland Promise is not a nonprofit. I've written in December 18th, 2019, I wrote to the Alameda County District Attorney Office.
What is their name, please, sir?
The Alameda County District Attorney's Office. Okay. And they assigned Mr. Vera Ducey Vera to the case. I asked them to issue a cease and desist order of Oakland Promise from collecting doing any further solicitation and collecting funds until such time they could determine the legal status of Oakland Promise. Right? Mr. Vera Ducey had indicated to me, and subsequent to that, in January 17th, I called to see where they were. They didn't have my case even in the system, but I had the stamped indicia. So they told me the email said, no, I'll bring it down. That's why you see January 17th on top of the December 18th indicia. And then on February 11th, I wrote a letter to the Secretary of State's office asking them to revoke the business registration of Oakland Promise 240888, because that's not there. That's East Bay College Fund. They even have East Bay College Fund's EIN number 542103-707. Okay?
Is that legal?
Let me put it this way. If you use somebody else's social security number, is that legal?
Thank you for the clarification, sir. That I'm clear now what it is. Thank you.
Okay. And in March, I wrote to then the Attorney General, Xavier Becerra, in March, asking them to do another cease and desist. Nobody has done anything. I'm asking, just put a halt to it until you determine the legal status. Make me a liar. And I go away. But I'm not going away until we get the answers. And see, unfortunately, folks supported Mia Banta, and she was part of this whole charade. She supported the council's action in December, and she's the one. Articles have shown where she said we are now merging with East Bay College Fund. I got all the articles. In my verified complaint, I had 41 exhibits, but they're not documented in the court's records because I had spiral bindings, and they would not take those, even though I got those in my verified complaint. I did not, however, in my amended complaint, I took all those out and I got exhibits, not judicial notices. I have judicial exhibits that are actually evidence. Those 3 letters, right. I have the exhibit of which should have been an audit, the investigation report of the city auditor, when I kept saying that Oakland Promise was operating inside of City Hall. And who authorized it? So when Courtney Ruby, who's also a defendant, did that investigation report, it established exactly what I said. They were operating inside of City Hall for 2 years. Now, that report came out in November 19, 2019. It's only a fledgling organization since 2016. They've been operating inside of City Hall for 2 years, to the tune of, and approved by then city administrator, Sabrina Landreth. I have her now as a defendant in the case because the council did not authorize over $4 million of resources, financial resources that went to. There was no, and the city was exposed to liabilities. There are a lot of other things that spin off from an unauthorized use. I'm not talking about inside of 150. I know there are nonprofits over there. I'm not talking about 250 Franco Gallo Plaza. There's no private business that can operate specifically inside of City Hall. And when that ballot measure, David Silver, and I got a copy of that check, wrote to the $500 to the city clerk for that ballot measure to appear in the 2018. And I also have the signature of the mayor when she brought those 33 boxes of signatures. It was 33, yeah, something like that, of signatures on the petition drive that she tried to have you to believe that it was a citizens petition driven drive. No, it was not. I got 85 emails prior to that ballot measure that the mayor signed off on everything.
Well, we're working with less than 20 minutes, so I got a couple of questions that we want our audience to hear and get clear. And let me tell you something, sir. I take my hat off to you. I bow down to you. Every time I speak to you, I become more knowledgeable about what's going on and what's not going on in our cities to help specifically the most marginal, the most disenfranchised, which are mostly Black people. So let me shoot a couple more questions out to you, because you are lighting it up, man. I have no idea that all this stuff was going on right under the mayor's constituent. And once again, all the people who you referred to today, whether it be Mayor Libby Schaaf, whether it be Assembly District 18 Representative Mia Bonta, whether it be Attorney General for the state of California, Rob Bonta, I humbly ask you to come on here and refute anything that Mr. Gene Hazzard has just said in the last 2 hours. So moving forward, I see June 15th of this year, there was a Gene Hazzard Oakland Promise lawsuit clarification. I reviewed the emails dated June 10th. Can you elaborate on these two emails between you, Gene Hazzard, and Sandra Andrews? Thank you.
Oh, no, I'll just send in Miss Andrews information regarding the lawsuit. So because I know she's always been very active, and I consider her an associate. And so I just want to bring her up to snuff, if you will, and she could share that with the Congresswoman.
Stan, where are you?
Who is Sandra Andrews, sir?
Oh, she was the community person for, as I think she's since retired from the office of Congresswoman Barbara Lee. I can't hear you.
Thank you for that information. Prior to that on May 4th, can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
Yeah, there's some background, a lot of background noise.
Yeah.
Okay, prior to May 4th, you mentioned clearly spelled out by the city attorney Barbara Parker legal opinion of March 3rd, 2020. Prior to 2019, Oakland Promise has not been a nonprofit. And after 2019 to the present, Oakland Promise is still not a lawful nonprofit, nor has Oakland Promise merged with East Bay College Fund. Can you explain the significance of this to our audience? Thank you, sir.
Well, it clearly lends support to my allegations, which is, what is the legal status of Oakland Promise? Lawfully, because they could give you unlawful claims that they're nonprofit. The only lawful agency that can issue a letter of determination is the IRS. Produce that document with regards to the merger, the claim merger, under the Corporation Code 6010A. I cannot merge with Doug Blacksher, who's a nonprofit, and I don't have a nonprofit. You can't do that under the Corporation Code 6010A. Now, once a merger is consummated, which comes from the Justice Department of the state of California, which is the Attorney General, which goes from the division, the Charitable Trust Division. They then would issue a certificate of merger. And once that certificate of merger is consummated, one organization survives and the other disappears. Well, East Bay College Fund is alive and well. So how can they both coexist if they claim they merged if they were legal? East Bay College Fund is not supposed to exist at all, but yet they were located at 300 Francogawa Plaza, room suite 340. But they also had and when, interesting, when Rob Bonta did their demur, maybe it was the city, it said that that they were not properly served. That's Fremder and Mia Bonta. I don't know why, because I was standing outside and served them at 300 Francogawa Plaza. But what I did on the amended complaint with Andy Fremder, I sent it to their post office box on Grand at UPS. And so, because that's where Rob Bonta, when they did the demur, sent it to Andy Fremder. And then I sent to Mia Bonta to her assembly office at the LAU Harris building at 1515 Clay Street.
Let me ask you this, sir. Who are the other players you have named in your Oakland Promise lawsuit, which you're not asking for money? You're asking for documentation for clarification. So I see listed in the Superior Court of the State of California, County of Alameda, case number R as in Roger, G as in good, 211-06953, the following: David Silver.
Excuse me, 6593.
6593. Thank you for clarifying that.
Okay.
The following persons are in this legal action: David Silver, Educational Director for the City of Oakland. Hold on, let me get them all out, sir. Barbara Parker, City Attorney for the City of Oakland. Ed Riskin, City Administrator for the City of Oakland. Courtney Ruby, City Auditor for the City of Oakland. Andy Fremder, co-founder of East Bay College Fund. Rob Bonta, former California 18th Assembly Member Representative. Sabrina Landreth, former City Administrator. Why were they named in the suit, sir? Thank you.
Okay, let's start with the last one, Sabrina Landreth. She approved, which is different than authorized by the City Council. She approved Oakland Promise operating inside of City Hall for over 2 years, as indicated in the informational report given by the City Auditor, Courtney Ruby, to the tune of using over and counting $4 million. And that report did not indicate that they had to pay it back.
Now, how much was that again? So I want to write this
$4 million of general fund resources, and exposed the city to a lot of liability. They didn't pay rent. They used the telephone, computers, you name it. And I met with the city auditor and her staff for over an hour after that report. And she held the position that their nonprofit has determined what they saw in the Secretary of State's office. I said, wait a minute, have you seen the letter of determination? Why aren't you talking about that? So they will direct you away from what the real issue is. Produce the document. Don't send me to somebody else's website because that's all doctored up. The Ed Riskin was there because when we talk about funds, they have to go through the city administrator. So when the council person in District 6 made that resolution of $1,500,000, those were the collective sums that appeared on each previous city budget. And if you look at 16, 17, 17, 18, and 18, 19, those will total those that they did not approve during those budget cycles. And here's why I believe they didn't approve it. Because Oakland Promise was not a nonprofit. And so when all this amended and restated its articles of incorporation to make it appear that this was Oakland Promise is actually East Bay College Fund, but the deception is that Oakland Promise is independent of East Bay College, whatever they're trying to create. That's why those funds were approved. Barbara Parker, obviously, she has her hands real dirty because I can't understand why she wrote the impartial analysis in the ballot, and yet they're going to appeal Ronnie McLaren's, Honorable Judge Ronnie McLaren's granting the Jobs and Housing Coalition it's not, you can't enforce it. You can't enforce that action. But it has more to do. Why I have her there is not only that, but she gives cover or support for the mayor's egregious action. David Silver is the one who was the first general / CEO of Oakland Promise inside of the mayor's office. And he
excuse me, sir, what is his salary a year now?
Oh, now it's $261,000. And you could go to Transparency California and put in David Silver, and he came for a short-lived position in the mayor's office that it was funded by the Rannon Foundation to put that position as, and then we don't even have a position, an educational director in the classification. And so they have him, it was initially educational graduate / mayor assistants, but they put him into the queue of salaries, and he went from 137,000 to 219 to $261,000.
Now, what is the RAND, so that our audience is educated here? What is the RAND?
The Rannon, RANIN. They are a philanthropic group that funds a lot of things. And they had, and in one of the emails, they had to be careful how they involve themselves in the ballot measure. I got that. Like I said, I got 85 emails. They didn't know. And I did a public records request to the communication director asking for the emails. And what's the name? Justin somebody. And he wrote back to me and said, no such emails exist.
Well, audience, this has been an eye-opening 2 hours. Mr. Gene Hazzard, there was a few more questions, but I think we're kind of running close to coming out of time. But what I would like to do, once again, if you are listening, if you can refute anything that Mr. Gene Hazzard has done out of his own pocket, and he's not looking to be financially, he's not suing for monetarily money. He's suing for documentation to show authentication. And that does not appear to be happening. So if anyone who was listed in this complaint would come on the show and would love to clarify some things that they think are misstated, we welcome you on the Black Business Roundtable.
Let me just say probably one final thing. We have a case management conference scheduled for December 14th. A case management conference. Now, a case management conference generally deals with where do we go from here? Okay. In my amended complaint, which I've included an injunction. An injunction is to refrain from doing something, and a writ of mandate. So I'm looking forward if they don't cancel it. Because I thought it would be pushed back because they have maybe 30, sometimes of course given more than that, 30 to 60 days to respond to my amended complaint that was, you see the indicia on there, November 8th, 2021. And I'd like to say to the audience, you could go to cleanoakland.com and go to Gene's blog, and you will see this case. You see the verified, the first verified complaint from July 29th, and you will see the exhibits that are associated with the amended complaint. We always do exhibits because those exhibits are evidence. Judicial notice is not evidence.
As we close out, and I'd like for you to stay on, I don't want to talk to you a few minutes after the show. As we close out, I want to thank you, Mr. Gene Hazzard. The information that you've given us was invaluable. Everyone has learned a lot today. What's going on here in the city of Oakland, and we want you to come back. There is another organization that we've talked about. It's started by Orly Brown Foundation. It's the Orly Brown Foundation. Many may recall she adopted the first grade class of 23 students and promised if they finished school and were admitted to college, she would pay their education. Her initial first grade class has had 19 students headed to college. She has appeared per her website on the Oprah Winfrey Show, Today Show, NBC Nightly News with Tom Brokaw, ABC World News Tonight with Peter Jennings, CNN Extra later today, and Courage, an inspirational show hosted by Danny Glover. She has also been featured on Glamour, Ebony, and Essence magazine. In 2002, she was one of Glamour magazine's Woman of the Year. Also, author of The Promise. And I want to say that again. Also, author of The Promise. The story of a woman with a big heart and even bigger dreams. Doubleday Fall 2004, Orly Brown, along with Khalid Milner, tells a remarkable story of one woman's unending desire to make a difference. Is Orly Brown's organization different from Oakland Promise, as mentioned in your lawsuit? And I'm going to leave that as a final question with less than 2 minutes left. I'd like to close out today by saying, once again, anytime you want to come back, Mr. Gene Hazzard, and update us on what's going on, we welcome you back on the show.
Thank you, sir.
And we appreciate you educating our audience, because we arm our people with intelligence and with truth to power, we can make change for
And let me
all
just
people.
say this to that. He or she who has the information, they can control the flow.
A special shout out to Donnie Glover of BlackUSA.News and current sponsor Magnolia Engineering and Construction. To join our Black Business Roundtable advertisement family or to be a possible guest on the show, reach us via our email, bbrt2021@hotmail.com. Include your company name, address, website, company phone number, and social media page info to our email address. To your email address at bbrt2021@hotmail.com. Audience, I want to sum it up with Gene Hazzard, what he said that makes so much sense. If we did the same thing that the people that Mr. Hazzard had done, it would be just like giving someone else's social security number, and that is illegal. Thank you. Thank you, audience. And remember, tune in every Thursday at 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time and East Coast Time, 7 to 9 p.m. We also have a network of shows hosted by Donnie Glover, such as Chap and Friends on Monday, Party Marty, Let's Talk on Tuesday, Sister Biz with Nicole and Tamara on Wednesday, Black USA Crypto News with Kamal Hubbard on Friday, and we have another program with, I believe it's Michael Hain on Sundays called 60 Minutes, the original 60 Minutes for Black folks in America. We also, I'd like to thank our audience for tuning in, and remember, together we can listen, we could learn, and we can share, because I know you care. This is Doug Blacksher of the Black Business Roundtable. God bless.
God bless you.
And good night. Thank you. Gene, stay on. I want to talk with you for a few minutes after.